Greetings all, my name is Chevelle Savage and I am on the board of directors for OutCT, as well as serve as the organization's education committee chair. And welcome to season 2, episode 1 of Who's in the Neighborhood. Today we will be chatting with our neighbors in New Haven from Y2Y Network. I'll be chatting with Cameron Von Fossen and Dyuthi Mathews Tharankan. So without further ado, I want to welcome both of you to Who's in the Neighborhood. How are y'all doing on this great day?
Pretty good.
Good. I'm
Yes,
excited.
thanks so much for having us.
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you for actually agreeing to do the interview. I'm excited to learn more about your agency and about you all as humans. So, and I know our viewers are as well. And so, one of the initiatives that we are actually doing with Who's in the Neighborhood is that we are actually reaching further than New London. And so, you are our first organization that we are actually featuring. And so, we're so excited about that. And I know that our viewers will be as well. So I'm going to go ahead and read your bios, if that's okay.
Of
All right.
course.
All right. So can I just call you by your first name? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Cameron is the executive director of Y2Y Network. They hail from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What cheese is, y'all, and bring over a decade of experience in nonprofit management, fund development, program development, and near peer and positive youth development models to the role. The greater part of their career has been spent in senior development roles for homeless, serving, and youth focused agencies. Cameron is also a newly appointed commissioner for the Cambridge LGBTQ plus community. Welcome, Cameron.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And Dyuthi is a junior at Yale, majoring in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology. Whew, that's a tongue twister. She has been involved with Y2Y New Haven since her freshman year and has served as an advocacy leader and steering committee member on the team. She's excited about opening of the overnight program on Grand Avenue and is currently working on finding more volunteers who would like to work with the program. So listen, y'all, not only you were in for a treat because listen to the receipts that they have, honey. Look at, they have like resumes, all right? So I'm excited and so happy to chat with y'all today. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it if that's okay with y'all.
Of course.
Sure.
All right. So tell me and our viewers a little bit about yourself, your organization, and how did the organization end up in Southeastern Connecticut?
Totally. Thank you for that question, Chevelle. So that bio pretty much summed it up. I've been in the sector for 13 years. My roots are in community development work, community organizing work, and direct service work with young people. So young people, working with them is really my passion. And I got into service work myself as a young person. Near peer development is also a passion of mine, which is why I was so drawn to Y2Y, because it is a youth-led youth homeless shelter model. So there's just this unique capacity for deep trust relationships between our student staff members and our guests because of that near peer kind of structure of the program. And our students are uniquely equipped to adapt to the changing needs of our young people, bring unique innovation and agility and willingness to adapt to the changing needs of our young people in shelter. So I am so excited to be with Y2Y. Y2Y New Haven in particular is a joint initiative between Youth Continuum, student leaders like Dyuthi and others from across New Haven, and Y2Y Network to open a student-run overnight program for young adults experiencing homelessness in the greater New Haven area. I'm also really excited that we are going to be offering a uniquely inclusive and affirming space to queer and trans young people with the opening of this shelter. As a queer and trans person myself, that is also one of the most important values aspects of the work that Y2Y does. And once built, Y2Y New Haven will provide 20 beds for youth experiencing homelessness and put them on a pathway out of homelessness towards long-term housing and success. and will actually achieve what's called functional zero in New Haven, meaning that for every young person experiencing homelessness, there is an available shelter bed for them. And I'd love, Dyuthi, if you have anything to add.
Of course. On a personal level, the reason I ended up joining Y2Y was because I had grown up in New Haven my entire life. And I grew up around a lot of peers and young adults who had experienced homelessness themselves. And when I had been talking about Y2Y before I joined, the consensus that we kind of came to is that this program, if it had existed before, would have really changed our lives. So then that really drew me to the program. And the reason that this organization is really important in New Haven is because New Haven has a very pressing and immediate need in terms of youth-specific and young adult-specific programs addressing homelessness. In the greater New Haven area, there's roughly about over 800 young adults experiencing homelessness. And if you actually include housing instability, that number actually rises to about 1,000. So there is a pressing need, and before Y2Y existed, there was only about 6 youth-specific beds in New Haven. That number has actually grown to 12, which is amazing, which is actually hosted by our partner Youth Continuum, but it is insufficient to kind of for the capacity that we're really looking for. So that's one of the reasons I'm excited that this is about to open in about a year.
Wow, that's awesome. And you know, the viewers know, and we chatted before we started the interview, that I'm not, originally from Connecticut, but definitely there was in Virginia, there was a really um, big problem around homelessness, um, and for queer youth. And it was very hard to try to find shelter for them so they could feel safe, right? And the fact that you said that you see for them to, for us to feel safe. And then also I love what Cameron mentioned about working with youth and creating like a deep trust, because that is so important. That is so important. So I'm excited. I'm excited to learn more about the program. I'm excited to learn more about like what you're doing now and how like maybe OutCT can support and help, as well as how can other folks support it and help as well. So you mentioned that it's not open. So tell me a little bit about like what the program is now and like what are you doing to like in preparation of the building?
Well, I can speak to the construction stage that we're at, and then
Sure,
maybe
sure.
you can speak to more of the student
Yeah.
level. But in terms of construction, we had our groundbreaking ceremony in December, and we are just in the process of finalizing some documents. Construction is kind of a long and laborious process. And luckily, we've not had too much of a delay in the context of the pandemic. But basically, we're undertaking a $1.5 million renovation of a current Youth Continuum owned space,
Okay.
where we'll be building it out to have these 20 beds present in a way that is extremely designed with the input and voice of student staff and young people experiencing homelessness. So we're really excited to have another space like our existing space in Harvard Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that is uniquely designed to serve people at this developmental stage of life, the age group of 18 to 24. So a really youth-centered space that gives the kind of platform for our uniquely inclusive and affirming shelter. And Dyuthi can definitely speak to the student involvement at this stage.
Right now, we're working on the behind the scenes work. The student team is really focusing on fleshing out the policy and programming that would be present at the overnight program when it opens. And we're also running a lot of design ideas by something called the Youth Action Board, which is hosted by Youth Continuum. And it comprises of a team of young adults who have had lived experience with homelessness, and we run these ideas by them. On my side, what I'm focusing on is advocating for young adults experiencing homelessness, but also we're deeply involved with the recruitment as we desperately need more volunteers once the actual overnight program opens, and kind of integrating this project into New Haven, and also finding partnerships with professionals to eventually also support the overnight program when it opens.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about what we can expect, some of the programs and features of Y2Y Network when you actually open. And also, well, tell me that, and then I'll go to my next question.
Do you want to collab on this one, Dyuthi?
I
can
think
just
you're
make...
better suited for this one.
Okay, perfect. We're gonna have 20 beds that provide overnight programming to young people where all of their basic needs will be met. Because of our wonderful partnership with Youth Continuum, we'll also be able to plug into a lot of the existing services for young people that they have, including daytime programming, referrals out to other resources around housing, placement, and job support, and all of those kind of ancillary services that are so important to getting our young folks stable and self-sustaining. But we're really, really excited to be in partnership with Youth Continuum because they are already such a well-established provider to young people experiencing homelessness in the New Haven area. And so we're excited to have this really critically important overnight program that's meeting basic needs and also offering case management services and all of those ancillary supports through our partnership with Youth Continuum.
Okay, thank you, thank you. What I was going to ask after the first question was, I heard that you say that I broke ground in December, and that's exciting, right? So how have you had to navigate COVID-19 with all of the things, right? Like, has that stopped or delayed construction? And what does that look like now? Like, are you still on target for your opening date? I know I've asked like a couple of questions in one.
No, that's a great question. As I'm sure many can relate to, we're in a place, you know, in the context of the pandemic of constantly having to adjust to this new normal. Adaptability is one of Y2Y's core values, and our ability to quickly adjust to new challenges is one of the reasons that why we've been able to remain open and sustainable throughout the pandemic. So in our shelter that we currently have in Harvard Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts, we have remained open with no nights closed throughout the pandemic, which we're really, really proud of because we lost access to all of our student staff and youth leaders at the beginning of the pandemic. So things have really remained open all year round using more of a hybrid staffing model there, which is professional and student combined. We've implemented strong social distancing guidelines and mask mandates. In terms of the work in New Haven, there have been, you know, I think some hiccups related to the pandemic in terms of our timeline. We're still hoping to open within months of what our original vision for our opening date would be. And I think, Dyuthi, you could probably speak to what the student experience has been like in the pandemic.
100%. I agree with everything Cameron's saying. You mentioned before about like the construction deadline, and we've definitely had to postpone when our opening date was. Prior to the pandemic, we actually assumed that we were working along the lines of actually having been open by now, actually within the past few months, but naturally we're hoping now to open within the next year. And one thing that's the benefit of us still being in that startup process of not having a place yet is that a lot of the work could actually be converted to be done remotely and could be done over Zoom. But definitely one thing that's been impacting us has been uplifting team morale, especially since we were largely comprised of student leaders. And as soon as the pandemic hit, everyone had to disperse. No one was really in the New Haven area. So making sure that we were in contact. And also, it can sometimes be difficult to continue working towards something when it isn't necessarily as visible, since we hadn't had construction. So this has been like a 4-year process. And keeping momentum during a pandemic can be very difficult, but that's something we're really trying to focus on. So that's been one of the main impacts of going virtual and making sure that everyone is safe, and so remaining virtual and just keeping the organization alive.
Thank you. Thank you. So that leads me to, because something that you said sparked something in me. When you said one of the things that you've had to do was to help uplift morale, right? And keep the momentum going, because the building is invisible, right? So let's shift a little bit. I know you told me like professionally how it has affected you, COVID. What personal adjustments have you, Dyuthi, as well as you, Cameron, had to make amongst the pandemic, amongst something that none of us have ever experienced?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we moved our administrative staff completely remote early on in the pandemic, and we've really limited the number of people who go into our shelter in Cambridge to just the staff who are on shift, unless there's like an absolute need for additional staff. We've also eliminated volunteers going in. I mean, I think, you know, it's been a difficult time for everyone. I think we've been hyper conscious of how our young people are experiencing the pandemic and thinking about what the pandemic means for them and their own safety. And early on, we were hearing lots of, you know, fear from young folks in our shelter space around what would happen to them and what the pandemic would mean for them. Obviously, the pandemic has also laid bare a lot of systemic failures. And so personally, it's been a lot to adjust to for our young people, for our staff, for me too. You know, also I was new to the area just about a month before the pandemic hit, so a lot of quick adjustment. But I think it's also been a lesson in, you know, kind of adaptation and patience and thinking creatively, and put a lot more emphasis on relationships and the emotional well-being of folks, and, you know, brought into question these exciting kind of questions on a systemic level about productivity and what work can look like, and the need to care for the whole person in the context of such a large scale social trauma that everyone's going through. And I think it's going to be years until we really understand, from our service population, our guests, all the way across society, what the impact of this large scale trauma is on society. But anything that you have to add to, Dyuthi, please.
Yeah, in New Haven, on a professional note, we had to suspend our in-person volunteering program called the pilot program, which would actually volunteer in the Winthrop shelter, and they were training to actually eventually work at the overnight program once it opened. And that was mainly to keep people safe, both the guests and the volunteers. But on a personal note, I really identify with a lot of what Cameron is saying, especially in New Haven. Working remotely, like I mentioned before, it is very easy to lose contact with people, especially through these trying times when we need each other the most. And one thing that we really tried to do at Y2Y New Haven, because we are mainly a student team, as soon as the pandemic hit, we reached out to every single member on the team and said, if you can't continue in this program, let us know. We're not going to overload you with work. Take as many days off as you want. Let us know at any point if you need a break, if you need support, if you need help and there's any way we can help you, let us know. And that's kind of the motto that we've carried with us since the pandemic started, all the way back in March of last year. And something that's been very heartening to me is that a lot of people, even through a lot of difficulty that they've been experiencing, have continued to work really hard to support each other, even just like supporting other team members or supporting the goal of the project. And it's been amazing for me to sit back and just watch.
Thank you both. Thank you both for sharing professionally and personally how the pandemic has affected you as a human, as well as a professional. You know, one of the things that you know, my paid job, I therapize for a living, so I'm a therapist, and so I have clients, and you know, the age 18 to 24, that's my jam, because that's college, you figuring out who you are. I'm like, yes, Ms. Chevelle will affirm you all the way. You can be all that you can be. But a lot of folks, like when, just like, do you think when you were saying when the pandemic hit, and also I think Cameron, you mentioned this, that you had to, like, y'all lost like pretty much a lot of your staff because they were college students, they had to go back home. And so one of the things that I noticed is that some of my folks that I have the honor of supporting on their mental wellness journey were like able to live their best lives on a college campus, you know, away from home, but had to really adjust when they had to go home. And so because maybe their house wasn't as affirming as they needed to be, you know, some of them were dead names, some of them were misgendered, you know, some just really couldn't even go home and didn't feel safe, right? Emotionally safe to be there. And I just noticed how that affected them. And also, you know, as a queer community, a lot of our family is chosen family. And so we're told that we can't be around our chosen family if we don't live with them, right? So like how that also affects how people move and shape in the world. And so I just noticed that how it affected on the negative side. Now on the positive, people started reaching out and like, listen, I've dropped off food at the curb, please come and get it. Or listen, let's set up a Zoom chat. Let's set up a Google Meet. Let's FaceTime. Let's still be connected. And so I've noticed that as a people and as a community, right, as a nation, we've been coming together more. And this kind of like has made us, I think, I'm not sure who said it, but it made us more adaptable. But do we have a choice? We didn't have a choice, but it's great that we were able to adapt and recognize it. And anyone that knows me before the pandemic knows that Chevelle Denise Moss Savage, and I gave my whole government name, is not good with technology. So the fact of the matter that we are having this interview on Zoom and it is going relatively well, and they have not been any tech hiccups. Let me tell you something, honey. I had to do a lot of reframing. I had to do some therapy on my own self, just to be able to get through the pandemic. So anyway, that is awesome. That is awesome. I want to ask you a question before we close. What important things or information do you want our viewers to know about your organization?
Yeah, for sure. I think the most important things to know about Y2Y are how unique we are in the provider space for youth experiencing homelessness. Young people come to Y2Y and come to the experience of homelessness, escaping unsafe home situations, being disowned because of their gender or sexual identity, aging out of foster care. And not only are they new to the experience of homelessness, they're also at this critical developmental stage in the age range that we serve of 18 to 24, where more resourced and housed young people are, like you said, having this self-exploratory stage of their life where they're pursuing higher education, or they have had avenues and pathways towards employment. And our young people are not only dealing with a lot of trauma that they've overcome or are still even grappling with from childhood and their younger years, they're also at this critical intervention stage in terms of the direction their life will take. And I think we have a unique opportunity to interrupt the cycle of homelessness in their lives before they become chronically homeless. And I think that's so important. I also think it's so unique in our work that we are so intentional, and it's because of wonderful student leaders like Dyuthi that we're able to do this. So intentional around creating a space where guest voice is considered, where our program model is iterative in responding to young people and their needs in shelter, where we have the near peer model where young people are supporting and working with other young people through this critically traumatic stage of their lives, the young people that we're serving in shelter. And I'm just really proud of the uniquely affirming and inclusive shelter space we're able to provide around intersections of oppressed identity, not only gender and sexuality, but race, religion, language, citizenship, and any other intersection of identity. As a queer and trans organizational leader, that is so important to me. And I'm just so grateful to our guests and our student leaders who make that work possible.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add to, Dyuthi, please?
I'm all set on my end.
Okay. So final question. how can our viewers find you, and what exciting things do you have on the horizon for ways our viewers can support your organization? I know that you had mentioned that once the overnight space opens up, that you will need volunteers and probably need some other folks in different professions to support the organization in different ways. But are there any other ways in which we can support right now?
100%. So right now, the best way to get in contact with us is to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, where we constantly have events that are going on that we need support in, or just panels or things that are going on where we would love additional assistance or attendees. So where you could see us is at Y2Y New Haven, or on Facebook and Twitter, you could catch us at Y2Y Network. And you can also follow our Youth Continuum partner at Youth Continuum on Facebook and Instagram. And on there, there's a lot of services that people could partake in. Beyond that, I think the main goal that we're hoping to reach is volunteers for once we open, which is our primary aim.
Okay. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, Cameron?
I think Dyuthi covered it on that one.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Listen, thank you so much. Thank both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to chat with us and for allow me to get to know a little bit more about what Y2Y Network is doing, as well as provide our viewers with this wonderful, informative interview so they can know the resources that are available with our neighbors in New Haven. So listen, thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is Chevelle Savage with OutCT, and I am glad that we've had the chance to chat with y'all, and we are sharing educational moments and resources, and I will see y'all next month for episode 2 of Who's in the Neighborhood. Bye, y'all.
Bye, Chevelle. Thank you.